What's up, everybody? It's your boy D Jones. This is Now Talk Live Podcast. Before we go any further, listen, y'all need to go to YouTube, you need to go to Instagram, and like us at Now Talk Live, follow us, subscribe. We're also on TikTok. I am so excited. Like I say, first go to those platforms, log in, subscribe, check us out. Make sure you're staying tuned. We got some great stuff coming up. But today I got an awesome man of God with us here today. Name is Titus Glenn. Let me give you a little preface. He's a spiritual deconstruction coach, creative healer, and ordained minister of the spiritual consciousness through the Inner Visions Institute of Spiritual Development. He grew up deeply rooted in a church after years of leading worship and journeying through various traditions, from Baptist to Pentecostal, back to Baptist to then Apostolic, and eventually Hebrew teachings. He experienced a profound awakening that redefined his relationship with God, identifying identity and truth. Today, Titus helps authors unpack religious trauma, reclaim their voice, and reconnect with the divine within through music, coaching, and sacred community. He is the founder of the Inner Chamber and the author of 13 Perspectives about God Blocking Your Freedom. Titus is also currently pursuing his master's in counseling to further support the emotional and spiritual well-being of those he serves. Well, without further ado, let's welcome Titus Glenn.
What's up? Pastor
What's
D?
up?
Is it okay to call you Pastor D?
Yeah, you good? Yeah, it's just not that a religious platform, but yeah, it's cool. That's how we met. Since you said that, I was able to experience his worship. I met him. I went to a church out in Denton, and I saw him. And I mean, you talking about big things coming in small packages. This is the guy. Came out, man. He got to singing and harmonizing and jumping around. I was so enamored by him. He actually accepted my invitation, and at that time, it was so amazing. I don't think he didn't charge me anything. Came out, brought his team. They blessed that conference. They made it what it was, and so that's kind of how we connected. And I've been checking him out from a distance. So I've known him over 10 years. Known him. We're not, we ain't just hanging out like that. But I know you and love you, love what God is doing with you, man. And I wanted to get you on here. I know you have done some work with a lot of artists, and kind of tell us a little bit about that, writing and songs and worship songs.
Well, cool. Again, thank you for having me on the show. Some of the work that I have done, with artists like Marvin Sapp. There's a song that I wrote that was on my Worshipers Corner album that I submitted to Marvin Sapp, I believe in 2010, somewhere
Mm-hmm.
around there. And
Mm-hmm.
he recorded it on his Leaning album. No, the I Win album. But the song that I wrote was
Mm-hmm.
called Leaning.
Okay.
And through that experience, that allowed me to submit songs to Bobby Jones' last album that he did with Faith Evans.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 songs on that album. Song with Maurice Griffin from Sunday Best, Prove Me I'm Yours, which got
Mm-hmm.
to, I believe, number 25
Mm-hmm.
on the Billboard charts. And
Mm-hmm.
I have songs with not Maurice Griffin, but with Montre Tisdale. Outside of Maurice Griffin, songs with Montre Tisdale, who's doing big things right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And just various independent artists,
Mm-hmm.
artists that are on labels. God has really blessed me to really be able to utilize my gift as a songwriter to
Mm-hmm.
be able to land some awesome placements.
Wow. So in other words, you're a bad boy. Are you a bad
You know
man?
what? I'm leaning in, and I'm gonna say thank you.
Great, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we love you, man. Like I was saying, I don't think you really understand what you mean and what you've meant to the body, even from a distance. I think we really don't know. I'm starting to understand how much when we're posting those videos, when people have seen us, heard us, how they place us somewhere in their life. Whether they're calling you every day, whether you're talking on the phone with them, or you even have their number. You have a place in people's life when you're ministering. And you've had a place in my life, in those times, man, when I was pastoring in Dallas, to have somebody of your caliber come in and do worship for me, it meant a million, because for one, budgets are small church,
Mm-hmm.
small church, but we want big worship, right?
For sure.
So you brought that, man, and you didn't haggle me about it. It was straight, yeah, let's do it. And you came in, man, and you brought it. You brought the presence, and so I appreciate that, man. I know that you have had quite a journey.
Indeed.
In the local church and abroad, and so I know you were in Denton, and so kind of tell us from there, I know you said you went into some Hebrew teachings and kind of where do we go from there?
So when I got to Denton, I went to Denton for school, and I was coming out of a Baptist background.
Mm-hmm.
Spoke in tongues, but went to a Baptist church. But my
Okay.
mom and aunt were very Pentecostal ish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the laying of the hands, speaking of tongues, I was the kid that was like, man, let me get in the car and let's go.
Okay.
When I got to Denton, I was like, okay, well, let me find me a Baptist church. I went to a Baptist church, but then ended up finding another church
Mm-hmm.
in Denton that
Mm-hmm.
was apostolic or non
Mm-hmm.
denominational. And that
Mm-hmm.
really opened the door for me to be really experimental in
Mm-hmm.
learning how to lead.
Okay.
Because before then, I was leading, but I didn't have the freedom. So,
Okay.
where we met, the facility and the congregation where we met at under that leadership,
Mm-hmm.
I always give praises to mentors because
Yeah.
that's, whether I'm there or not, I
Right.
have no bad words to say. It served its purpose. And because of that experience, I am who I am today. And from there, after leading worship for at that point, it had been like 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
I was exposed to Hebrew teachings. And when I
Mm-hmm.
was married at the time, as I had to really sit with and look at what am I doing,
Right.
and really lean in to really ask myself, who was Jesus and what's going on in his culture. And so once I made that move and started to really look at his lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
and the Hebrew teachings and the
Mm-hmm.
idioms that was not really being taught in a Baptist or apostolic or
Mm-hmm.
any other denomination that I had experienced before,
Mm-hmm.
me and my family at the time, we switched over to being more Hebrew, Messianic Hebrew, I would say. And we
Wow.
started celebrating Hanukkah, stopped doing Christmas, started celebrating Shabbat. So every Friday after
Mm-hmm.
3, it was family time, unless it was like some business opportunity. But for the most part, every Friday for a good 3 to 4 years, we were not really doing anything on Friday, going to church
Right.
Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and in that experience, I saw revelation. I was able to hear and see God differently. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing.
Wow.
And then
Okay.
in that journey, I was sitting in a Hebrew class, and the rabbi who was teaching, he made a comment about hell. And he started to talk about how the Jews don't really teach hell. And I was like, whoa. And that stopped me in my tracks that night, because that was the seed that began to be planted in my mind concerning just a lot of condemnation around hell.
Right.
Because people teach Jesus, but they don't teach his culture. And so, how can
Right.
you really lean in on who Jesus was as a person when you don't even understand his culture? And so, with that seed being planted on the ideas of hell that Jewish culture had, it really had me pause
Okay.
and really sit with what in the world is going on. Because
Okay.
from that point, I started to even look at this form of Jewish Messianic Jew and look at Pentecostal, Baptist, all these denominations as the same.
Wow.
Because I had
Okay.
experienced Baptist, Apostolic, and
I see.
every one of
It
them.
was to you in that time. It was just another way God. It was just another way that they were presenting it to you. It was another form,
Absolutely.
but it was really
Absolutely.
saying the same thing.
Absolutely, or in a
Okay.
different way, or in a
Right.
different dimension, or a different layer.
Right.
Like
Right.
going through the various ways that you can even teach the prodigal son.
Right.
Like the rabbi is not teaching it like the Baptist preacher,
So give me an
right?
example. What's the difference?
So the difference would be in the Baptist, they would say that the prodigal son left into the world and it was all about morals.
Right.
He sinned, he messed up drinking,
Right.
shacking, all this stuff.
Right. Right.
When you get over to the Hebrew lens, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to you removing yourself from the Sabbath. So when you come back to the Father, you are realigning back into the culture of
He
what
left
it
the
means.
culture. He left the way they were
Right.
doing
He
things.
left the
He
way they
wasn't
were
up
doing
under
things.
that structure.
Right. He wasn't
Right.
under the Sabbath, under the teaching, under the
Right.
anointing
Right.
of what that structure was.
Gotcha.
And so there was different things that I was seeing that it was legit just being preached differently. And in the context of just being in these different organizations, I got to see that everybody was praying. They were just saying things differently.
Right.
They were, it was singing, it was meditation, it was either baptism or uh,
Mm-hmm.
in Hebrew, they would do the washing of the hands. They wouldn't do baptism. They would
Right.
do other forms of baptism. And so it was kind of like, for me, I began to really lean in and see that what we call denominations and separation was really one and the same.
Right. I got you. Okay. Okay. So you go through the Hebrew. The rabbi gets up. He mentions hell. He says something profound.
Mm-hmm.
You're setting aside this time to spend time with your family,
Mm-hmm.
right? For the sake of the religion.
Right, for Shabbat, yeah, for the
And
sake of being
then
a
and
teacher.
then you go through a divorce. How does that, yeah, so you see where I'm going, right? So how
Yeah.
does that affect you again in your faith?
So when I hit my divorce, that's when it was like, what in the world is really going on? Like, God, what are you saying? Because this doesn't make sense to me. Here I am, a worship leader. Here I am. Know that I'm gifted to shift the atmosphere. Not
Right.
not saying it as an arrogant way, but I'm
Right.
Titus Glenn.
You Titus Glenn, yeah.
I'm Titus Glenn.
I
I'm
got you.
I'm like known in the city.
Mm-hmm.
People calling me,
Mm-hmm.
to hear me sing, and here I am going through a divorce. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And the idea of perfectionism began to break. Like, I'm not perfect.
Right.
And so
Mm.
that pushed me to really get in the place to where, God, I just want you.
Right.
However that looks, I need to feel your presence again, because at this point, like, I don't even think I'm lovable.
So
I
do
don't
you
even think
think
that I'm
that this place you were in was kind of like a therapy for you?
therapy. No.
Okay, okay. Well, what I'm saying is, do you think it was in some form therapeutic? Like you're going through saying, hey, this didn't work. I'm not perfect. With all everything that I thought I was, it was. That's not what that is. And so let me redefine this.
Well, I wouldn't call that therapy. I called it really trying to figure out what I believed and what
Okay.
was real. Because at that point, I didn't know what was real. I didn't know what was real. Like, because at that time, it was like, I shouldn't be going through this. There's no way I should be questioning sexuality, going through a divorce, not really wanting to pray, because it's like, who am I praying to? Like, God,
Got
are
you.
you even real? Because
Right.
all these emotions are coming up, because this is not supposed to be my life.
Right. So I do understand that there was some infidelity in the relationship. How did that affect your marriage and your beliefs?
Well, definitely affected my marriage, because for me, I don't condone any type of adultery, but my adultery was my wake up call that something was off within me. And so when I started to have an affair, actually started putting myself through therapy, because I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Right.
Like,
Right.
what is happening?
Right.
And so in that process, I was at tug of war with God, because I was like, God, what is this? Like, I'm praying, I'm fasting. If I go left, I go right. I'm seeking your face, but this desire is not going away. Right. And so
Right.
in that process of going through therapy, even going through conversion therapy and all these things, it was just like, okay, who am I, and am I lovable if I choose this type of lifestyle? Will God love me if I choose this lifestyle, or if I go this way? And so that did affect my faith, because in my mind, if I choose this lifestyle, I'm going to hell and God is not going to like me. So
Wow.
why even pray? Why even sing? Why even worship? Because I can't even enter into this place with God, with this being or this authority that I think in my mind thinks I'm disgusting.
Wow. Wow. So this was you were questioning after the divorce, and you were questioning your sexuality, and you kind of went through a wrestle of what side you're on.
Yeah, I mean, it really all happened at once. I'm going through
Okay.
the divorce, managing my feelings about the
Right.
divorce, managing my feelings about my affair,
Right.
managing my feelings about sexuality. Am I
Right.
gay? sexual. What is this? Because everything I was told before this point has been all you're going to hell, you need to repent, you
Right.
need to get back to God. Even in my divorce,
Right.
because I committed the adultery, I'm the adulterer. So now it's like, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong. And everywhere I turn
Right.
in that faith is like, I'm the problem.
Right. So what did
What is my preference? You know what? It's still up in the air.
okay. Okay. I didn't want to get, and that's the question they waiting me to ask.
It's still up in the air. I am single, first of all.
Okay.
And for me, it's all about I've been healing for the last 3 years. And I dare not rush getting into any type of relationship.
Right.
And my face is yet on the wall concerning, God, who is it?
Who you,
What
yeah.
male, female, what.
Right.
And so for me, it's up in the air. I guess they'll find out whenever I show who they are.
So before we get into this,
Huh.
what has been your experience
Hmm.
with those that knew you and knew what you believed and that know who you are and what you as a worship leader in the Baptist and the Pentecostal and all that? What has been your experience with those that knew you before now and the person you are now and becoming?
You know, Pastor D, I don't really talk to a lot of people before that was in that Titus Glenn. What I found is that, and this is something that I equate to being in church, is
Hmm.
that a lot of people, in my experience, don't know how to embrace people's human.
Right.
And
You just said
so
something so powerful.
I couldn't really talk, or I felt like I couldn't talk to people in that space, except for I have a friend in Dallas who has always supported me and called me and prayed with me. Her name is Pastor Tara. So I give shout out to her because she was
Right.
definitely there in the
Yeah.
thick of it.
Right.
And so I definitely have her.
We
There's
lost
probably
camera.
one.
We got to get your camera back.
Okay, hold on.
Okay,
Can you
there we
see me
go.
now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, okay. So, and of course, I have some family members that were there. My mom has been here in the process. My sister has
So
been
no,
here in
so
the
no,
process.
no inboxes for many bishops or pastors or people that you did worship for, or kind of like, man, what you talking
I'm trying
about?
to making sure now. I'm trying to watch
Not,
my words. I'm
not
trying
the
to watch my
name, not their
words.
name, but I know somebody like, hey, bro, you tripping?
I can't really say at the top of my head somebody's inboxing me just to check on me.
Wow.
Because I kept everything hush hush. When I announced my divorce,
Right.
the pastor from Denton was like, "Is this real?"
Wow.
Because I didn't tell anybody until like after a year.
Wow. Okay.
There were things that I was processing myself, the
Right.
embarrassment, the shame.
Yeah.
Should I talk about this? Should I
Right.
not talk about this?
Yeah, I understand. I went through about the
Yeah,
same time. Was so ironic about it. It's
yeah,
actually been no. I think that it's been 5 years now. I went through a divorce, a messy one. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And so, in that, if people checked on me, I think I was so cut off because I was so ashamed. I was so
right,
embarrassed.
right,
And what I have found is that if you had never experienced a divorce, there's not anything that you really could relate to being in one
right, right,
that wouldn't leave me feeling ashamed,
right.
because I have learned that I'm very sensitive. I'm very sensitive to energies,
Mm,
and which is why I'm gifted to lead, because I can walk in a room and pick up stuff like that.
right. I
And
got you.
so with that, I was very guarded with who I was talking to,
Hmm.
because I could smell judgment.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Even if it was, and sometimes that was me, learning how not to project on other people.
Right.
But what I found was the safest places that I could actually be myself with people who were not in the church or people who had actually gone through a divorce.
That's me. Yeah. That's
And
why.
so,
That's how I connected. When I heard that, I was like, boom. I know.
yeah.
It sounds like to me you connected who you were in the faith.
Hmm.
It was kind of intertwined with your marriage. So when
Absolutely.
that's what I'm
Absolutely.
hearing. It's
Absolutely.
like that marriage was very neatly tied into what you believed, who
Absolutely.
you were in the kingdom, and when that
Absolutely.
fell apart, all of that. Yeah, I see why it came under question. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it was kind of like, and when I'm in a relationship with somebody, even when we part, I try to be careful on what I say.
Right.
You know, even when I was doing my podcast, A Safe
Yeah.
Place, I was watching my words the best that
Right.
I could
Yeah.
because I didn't want people to feel like I'm tearing down other people.
Yeah.
But part of it is still giving truth to my story
Right.
because what I've learned about this journey, that what sets me free can also set somebody else free.
And you did that. It helped me. I actually was watching during the time where I was still processing.
Mm,
And you were careful. You did a very good job at protecting the ex and all that, man. I want to tell you that now. And little
appreciate it.
did you know, we were all watching.
Wow.
And even though they were, people try to act like they're not viewing, they were viewing. And it's good for you. It for me, it helped me see that I wasn't alone. You
Mm-hmm.
were very courageous, way more than me myself. I still haven't talked about it in public.
For
Yeah,
sure.
and maybe I need to. Maybe that's the therapy I need. I was just so happy to be free,
Yeah.
and I was just so happy to have a chance to do it right. And I wasn't ashamed. I was not
Yeah.
ashamed
Yeah.
of that part because I not only got divorced, but within a couple of years later, I mean, I was still pastoring, preaching, but within a couple of years later, I pretty much stopped, didn't even want to pastor no more. Just
Mm-hmm.
not because of the divorce. It was just that part, letting that part go.
Mm-hmm.
I began to look at that as something that was dispensable too, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped. I'm back now. But I took that time. It's been about 3 years, and
Mm-hmm.
but I took that time to get to know myself again
For sure.
and to heal. And I'm still healing. Don't get me wrong. I'm
Yeah.
still healing.
For sure.
But yeah, I wasn't ashamed, but I understand, man, during that time, and I just wanted you to know that hearing you talk about it, it really helped me to
Mm.
see that I wasn't alone and that you don't have to hide it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I mean, that to me, what gave me the strength was first hearing God and actually going through therapy before I actually talked about it,
Hmm.
making sure that I could stand in what I was saying without the criticism.
Hmm.
Because, truth be told, somebody came in my inbox and told me I probably shouldn't be talking about me having an affair because that might prevent people from reaching out to me. And I said, and in my head, I said, this is the foolishness that church people deal with.
Right. That's
because
what the.
because in my experience,
Hmm.
I learned that I was wearing a mask,
Right.
not on purpose,
Right.
but even when I wasn't, having the mic, I was trying to live holy, and I wasn't doing the foolish things. I've never been a clubber, never really been a drinker until after the divorce. But I just, drink on occasionally, because I don't want nobody thinking that I'm out here doing all that. But I'm just saying, in my experience in church had me living with this idea of being perfect. And so to hear somebody on the back end say I shouldn't be talking or telling my story was my proof that so many people in the church are living with a mask.
That's true. That's true.
They're living with a mask. And so part of me talking and speaking in this way, even the
Yeah.
way that I'm speaking now, is because so many people want to say something, but they are so afraid because of being judged, because they've been hurt, because they fear they're going to lose community. Because again, once
Right.
you under a apostolic or
Hmm.
bishop, if you say
Right.
anything contrary to that bishop or that
Right.
house, whether you just want to question or anything like that, all of a sudden people like, wait, what you saying? What you is, and it's like for me, I feel like I'm called to be a bridge for people who are trying to discover where they land if they choose to leave that church, that congregation, explore a different denomination, a different religion, and be okay to ask these questions without feeling like, whoa, am I the only one?
Yeah.
Because this journey, whether it's divorce, deconstruction, it can have you in a place to where you fear even saying what you're experiencing out loud.
Right. I got you. I understand. Well, I know it really set me free, man, just hearing you talk about those things. So let's get to the meat here.
Okay.
Deconstruction.
Hmm.
What is that about?
Deconstruction is really about asking the questions around your faith and what you believe. That's at the core of it. Because in my experience, I'm only speaking from my experience. A lot of us, not a lot of us, this is the truth. Everybody got here by way of their faith being handed to them. And what I mean by that is that the person that's going to watch this, they didn't have a choice if they was going to be Baptist or Pentecostal or Buddhist. Because one thing that we all as humanity, when we grow up, we are born in a culture, and that culture defines who we are. And for a lot of us, especially in the church faith, we did not get access to even study other religions or test God or ask questions about God because we were told it was wrong.
Right. Yeah.
You don't question God. You don't say things. If the pastor said it, you don't say nothing. You
Right.
study, but you study through the end. You study through the lens of
Yeah.
what the house is teaching.
Yeah. I
And
understand.
anything outside that lens, if it's not in alignment or it feels different, then
Right.
people is gonna shut that down.
Right.
And so for me, deconstruction is about you getting the opportunity to question what it is that you believe. One of the
Right.
things that I told my mom when I was going through this journey, I said, Mama, think about this. I said, if I was raised Baptist, and this is all I know,
Mm-hmm.
that Jesus is the only way, right? And I walk into a room with a Buddhist who all they know is Buddhism, and we try to argue each other, how
Mm-hmm.
can we defend who's right and who's wrong?
Right.
Because it's all we know.
That's all we know.
It's all we know. And so another thing that I was expressing is that time that, and I had to really sit with this question that I asked her. I said, if I were to save him, and this is the extension of that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
let me re-say it. If I were to witness to him and his life changed, but he never confessed the name of Jesus and went on to change millions of lives, are we really going to think that God is going
Mm.
to send him to hell, even though he
Right.
did good works concerning all those millions of people?
Right.
And they were just good human beings. And these are the things I begin to sit with because it no longer makes sense to me.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so, and in that, of course, there's history of when you go through the Hebraic teaching, you begin to even learn about the canonization of the Bible. And a
Wow.
lot of Christians don't even know that the Bible that they're reading is not even the whole book. So how
Right.
can
That's
you
true.
live your life on a truth that's
That's
not
half.
even the whole
Not
truth?
even half. Yeah. Well, let me. I hear you talk a lot or make statements a lot
Hmm.
about religious trauma.
For sure.
Define that for me.
Religious trauma is any spiritual or religious experience that has you in a traumatic state or in a feeling of fear, angst, or worry. So it's really going to be different for anybody according to how that experience impacts how you're able to move on.
So, how was your religious trauma? How would you define your religious trauma?
My religious trauma was around homosexuality, being able to feel loved by God because it's like, whoa, I can't. God won't love me. It was around getting a divorce. I got a divorce,
This
so
is deep, bro.
I can't be loved by God. So anytime I'm hearing God or singing the name Jesus, I'm legit cringing inside because
Right.
in my mind, my mental is like, God,
Yeah.
am I loved? Am I not loved?
Right.
The feeling that drew me into you is now the things that's causing me to be triggered.
Wow.
And what do I do with this? And
Wow.
that is trauma because the experience is now making me feel like I don't belong, like something's wrong with me.
Right.
And so a lot of people, they experience that. They just don't have verbiage to give to it. You got women who won't get into the pulpit because they feel like my pastor said I'm not called,
Right.
or I can't wear makeup, or if I go out and look and put on makeup, then I'm off because women not supposed to be wearing makeup, or men not supposed to have long beards or long hair. This does something to your psyche when your inner being knows that you can do this to be beautiful, but there is a conflict within yourself.
Yeah. I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry if I cut you.
So in regards to that, religious trauma, going back to me, was those inner conflicts that was bringing about tension that used to bring me joy.
Right. Yeah. I think once I went through a divorce, and I did have an expectation. I had expectation of all the people that I was there for,
Hmm.
and that other ministers that I felt that I thought were for me, not having that support from them was my trauma. Right.
Mm,
And so I'm already an introvert. I pulled to myself. I self medicated. I went through all those
okay.
things. And so for me, and during that process, I also began to question the faith.
Hmm.
But what I realized is that I still believe I'm called to the church, because I literally
Okay.
was like, I even questioned God's existence.
Yeah.
I went through all that stuff, man, and the Bible ain't real, and the Jesus, the letter J, all of that stuff, right? And
Hmm.
I'm preaching again, pastoring. I think it's because this is the audience God has for me.
For sure.
It's
Absolutely.
not that what I experienced was not true,
Hmm.
or that I didn't find some things that are questionable. I just
Hmm.
think this is who I'm called to. If I go
Okay.
any other direction, I'm not sure if that's what God, how He wants to use me, and that's my personal take on that. And so for you, what has that been like, saying maybe my audience is different?
Ooh, a challenge. A challenge. OMG, because I know what it's like to even mention, I don't know if I believe in Jesus. To say that out loud and to
Right,
people like, well, Jesus is the only way. What you talking about? It has definitely been a challenge because I know that I am up against a certain programming that people have lived their life by.
right,
And so to the question, it's something I stay in prayer all the time. Like even when I respond to people on Facebook, it's really like, how do I say this out of love? But even though I feel attacked,
right.
how do
Yeah,
I share from a place of, okay, I'm honoring your journey, even if you can't honor mine?
right. Yeah,
And so it has been a challenge to really stand in and see how people respond. All at the same time, it's been really rewarding to see more people cheer me on than
yeah,
people come up against me.
yeah. We're for you, man.
And so here I am really realizing that people have more questions that they will say out loud.
Hmm.
And it's really has been confirming my assignment to hold space for people who, when I say deconstruct, whether you go back to Christianity or not, that is none of my business. Because at the end of the day, God is going to be God, and how your relationship with God is your relationship with God. But if
Right,
somebody say, you know what, I'm exploring tarot, I'm thinking about astrology, but I don't feel safe to talk about that out loud. Let's have a conversation
right,
because I know what these things have helped me discover about myself
right.
that the church could never.
Yeah, this space here is about, and I in the past I've had these same spaces, but this particular space is about being able to have that conversation
Hmm.
in any capacity. And so, I want to sit down with more people that believe different, or anything, whatever. I believe I think it is the heart of God, or the personality of God, to at least hold the conversation and respect what people think
Absolutely.
and feel and believe.
Absolutely.
I respect you. Like I say, you my boy. We love you. Well, I can't speak for everybody. I can't. I'm
I
not saying
appreciate it.
people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people don't.
No, I understand. I understand.
I love you, man.
I
And
appreciate
and and I hate it. It really bothers me. Not hate. I don't like to use that word, but it really bothers me that when somebody doesn't believe what you believe, or they say something that you don't agree with, we throw you away.
that's
And that is
programming
the
though.
part of the church, huh?
I feel like that's programming. We've been programmed to disperse people when they don't agree or if they sin, quote unquote, because I use that word lightly now. Like, but when we do anything outside of this gospel that is under our denomination, because if you go up the street around the corner, that teaching is totally different. But if you don't do it the way that we've been telling you to do it, then now something's wrong with you
Right.
and you
Right.
need to repent. And if you don't repent according to how we think you should be repenting, then you need to go somewhere else. Or if I
Right.
don't tell you to go somewhere else, I'm preaching in a way, I'm showing up energetically in a way, that legit repels people from wanting to even come to a place that preaches God.
Right. Right. I got you, man. Well, that's powerful. So, where can we find you?
I'm everywhere. Titus Glenn official.
All right.
Titus Glenn official, Reverend Ade Damola, which is my ordained Reverend name on Facebook, on TikTok.
Reverend, say that again.
Ade Damola. My crown is mixed with blessings.
That's what that means? That's beautiful, bro.
Appreciate it.
That idea, spell it out so we can find that.
ADE.
All right. Anywhere else?
You can find me. My music is still out there. It's on Spotify as well as Insight Timer. And for those that are in meditation, I'm putting out more meditation, more affirmations to support people in all walks of life.
Man, we got to have you back. It's this little time went by so fast, and I don't feel like I dealt with everything. You come back for me?
For sure, we'll do.
All right. Any last words for the audience before we?
Man, I would say for those that are on your journey, wherever you are, this is a saying that I've been telling myself since this walk began. Find yourself, be yourself, and then let everybody else do the same.
Wow. Thank you, man. Bro, this has been life-changing. This is powerful. I appreciate you, giving me an opportunity to interview you, have you on this platform. Man, straight up. Like, absolutely. I appreciate you. We've been with Titus Glenn. Like I say, y'all add us. He gave you his information. Y'all go check him out. Stay tuned. I think it's going to be some mighty things coming out of this, man. And so make sure y'all go to my YouTube, Now Talk Live Podcast, Instagram, Now Talk Live Podcast, TikTok. We're there. So go check us out, Now Talk Live Podcast, and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe and follow. We got some interviews coming up. It's powerful. Thank you, Titus, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.